Hello, my name is Layton. I'm an intuitive and a mystic, and one of my favorite ways to work psychically is by doing body work. Especially, I love doing in person work. I love laying hands on people and locating entity attachments within them or locating their pain and trauma, helping them get to the root of that, and then helping them learn how to process that out of their system. So, since I haven't been able to do very much of that in person recently, I thought, why not explain to other people the process so that they can learn that this is something that they can really do within themselves? And the reason why this is so important is because I genuinely believe that intuitive work is not intended to necessarily be us going to see someone over and over and over again, for them to solve the problem. What I feel like is so important and special about being an intuitive and about being psychic is that I get to teach you that you can do all the same things. You may need me at first, but you won't always need me. And I just want to make sure that you know that. So I figured I would start by explaining a little bit of my process and how I do this on myself. So, what happens is that when we have pain, when we have trauma, when we have shame, guilt, anything like that, we dissociate from the heart center. We kind of move out of that place and settle more into the lower chakra system. When we do that, we make ourselves more vulnerable to the lower astral. We become more vulnerable to entity attachments, and this can kind of happen naturally. It can be, you're maybe around someone that has an attachment that is resonant with a wound that you have, and it will kind of connect to you that way. It can be something that maybe you've always had. Maybe it's generational, meaning that it runs in the family. It could be an attachment that has attached to your mother and her mother and whatnot. That's something that's also common, but it attaches through a wound. It attaches because it has an environment to thrive in. And you've probably heard the saying before that darkness can't survive in the light. Once we take something that has been hidden and we bring it to light, it no longer has that same power. And that's kind of what I seek to do in this. When I am working on someone, I will lay hands on the different parts of their body that I feel this attachment may be coming from. It's not even necessary to lay hands. If someone isn't comfortable with that, then I just kind of hover my hands over and just kind of try to feel wherever this might be coming from. And once I locate the physical body part, I then go mentally inside of it. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I feel like the clairvoyant version of like Miss Frizzle or something. And just, it's like I'm going into someone's body and I can kind of see the bigger picture of what's going on from there. So, the way that I do this on myself is actually really similar to something that you would do in therapy. If you were working with a somatic therapist and they would say something to you while you were talking about something traumatic or painful, they might ask you something along the lines of, where are you feeling this in your body? So say that I'm feeling it in my solar plexus. So I would then, place my hands on my stomach, and from there, I would focus on the sensation. You really want to separate whatever the anxieties, thoughts, and fears are. You really want to separate that completely from the sensation, because we need to move out of the lower astral. And in order to do that, we can't be focusing too much on those things. It's not really going to be beneficial for us to be focusing on the intrusive thoughts or on the anxieties or whatever those things are. But when we can come into the body and focus on the sensation, that is when it kind of gives us the freedom to start working with it. Once we locate the sensation, we want to allow ourselves to feel it completely. Now, when I am doing this work on someone else, while they are feeling it completely, I will be tapping into whatever the root of it may be. This is not something that you necessarily have to do. It doesn't mean because you can't find a root, it doesn't mean that you can't release the entity. Sometimes it will be necessary for you to know what the root is, because sometimes the root may be something like enmeshment with a relationship that you're involved in, that it's really necessary for you to recognize that and either break off the connection or set certain boundaries so that that entity no longer has room to attach in that way. Or the root may be something like drug addiction, or really any kind of addiction. So if you're meant to know the root, it will come the root to you. Maybe not the first time, but you will be made aware if this is what you are seeking to do. From there, after you experience the initial sensations, you want to let your body do whatever it feels like it needs to do next. The body is very, very intelligent, and somatic release actually causes so much dense energy to kind of break up and disperse, not disperse in terms of spreading, but in terms of moving far. It's like these little bubbles of this hard, dense energy that we would normally correlate with whatever the pain or trauma is, and it's being broken up and it's kind of releasing around us. And when it does that, it becomes smaller and smaller and moves further and further away. And that's because it no longer has an environment to thrive in. So there are going to be a few ways that we can somatically release that will aid in releasing possible entity attachments. And I'm going to go over some of those ways. One of them is laughter. And this may seem unexpected. If you're going into this with a kind of intense mindset, you may not be expecting to laugh and release an entity this way, but actually laughter is of God. It's one of the most powerful ways that we can connect to the heart center. And when we laugh, we are really repositioning ourselves back into the heart in a really fast and powerful and efficient way. The harder we laugh, the better, genuinely. And so that's why a lot of times you may be in a very stressful or difficult situation and find yourself laughing uncontrollably. And it may seem inappropriate, but it's really not. It's a completely natural response. Shaking, hiccups, crying, trembling, tremors, teeth chattering, any of those things. Instead of suppressing these things when they come up and saying, like, I feel like such a freak right now. Why am I shaking? Why are my teeth chattering? You want to just let it happen, because we need to let our bodies know so much better than we do. We want to suppress. We want to fix. We want to, put a stop to whatever this natural response is. And when we do that, we prevent our body from partaking in this very natural process. Another thing that may happen is you may develop a fever. You may feel sick. Again, it's important to notice the symptoms, and instead of saying, this symptom isn't okay, I need to fix it, and getting all in the mind about it, we need to let the body naturally process this stuff out because it knows how to. We also don't want to be super hyper fixated on the fact that there was an attachment. I want to be really clear that having an entity attachment is not the same thing as like demonic possession. It's actually really common, and the majority of entity attachments that I have seen tend to be things like thought forms or emotional egregores that have been created out of our own pain and trauma and really taken on a form of their own. So if this resonates with you, please let me know. If you've had any experiences with this kind of thing before, I would love to hear about them. I hope this helped, and thank you so much for listening.